I want to get the ball rolling because
So
12:07, we should have everyone here. And I want to start with sort of what your process is like when you are thinking about writing a new book or series. What sort of prep are you doing before you write the book? Like before you even have a draft or before you even start to outline.
mhm. I think it all comes down to where my muse is, how I'm feeling in my gut about the direction that I'm going to be going. And I think a lot of authors, I'm sure some people can probably shake their heads at the same time. Like you usually go with something that you feel inspired by. I don't try to impulsively chase that though by typing first and going into it. What I really like to do before I dive really deep into writing anything is any type of market research. I want to make sure that there's demand because at the end of the day, like this is my full-time job. I don't have a safety net. I need to make sure that whatever I'm producing is going to bring in revenue. Got to pay those pesky things that come in the mail called bills. What gives on something like that? And so it's going in and figuring out the demand. Now, I will say, and I think a lot of people will look at the books that I'm producing right now, including self-publishing for new authors. I just launched that a few weeks ago, and I've got book two coming out next week. Um, this is a rather niche topic. It is not going to draw in thousands upon thousands of dollars per day. I mean, unless I'm building out a back end funnel of some sort, it's a smaller audience. Now, if I was wise, I'd probably break into something like, I don't know, romantasy or something like horror, which is really starting to blow up here these days. And why do I choose to do this? It's because where I've built my brand. It's what I've been doing on YouTube. And I've got such large reach, and I hate using this word, but influence, that I know that it's going to perform well enough that I can still be able to pay some bills and have a little money left over at the end of the day. So it's that market research that makes the biggest difference because when I go in and I'll look at my contemporaries, the David Gogrins, the Joanna Penns, the Craig Martells, they've put out some amazing books that have performed really, really well. And what I do is I first of all read the books front to back. And as I'm going through, I'm typically making notes, and I'm making a mess here of my desk. I make notes over on my e-reader about things that I really like. I'll typically highlight that in yellow. And sometimes when I see some mistakes, I'll highlight in red. Now, I never go and share these notes with the authors. The reason why I highlight those things is it helps train me for when I go in and proof any of the stuff that I've done previously. So I go through, I read the people that are within my niche. I don't try to skip over something like that. And the next thing is going to be is what do the readers think of this? Because it's not enough that I go with like, oh, I love Craig Martell. He's fantastic. He's great. No, what is the audience currently saying? So this is where reviews are just absolutely integral to my market research. I want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I started out by going right to the one-star reviews. I want to figure out what is the gap in the market. How can I be able to fill that hole? And that way I could be able to put something on the market that those readers were missing in that publication could be able to take advantage of. Now, conversely speaking, I also want to pay attention to the strengths of each one of these books. I want to see why are they getting 4 and 5 star reviews? It's not just as simple as like, hey, their friends and family came in there. I want to see some reviews with substance, something that tells me X, Y, and Z. This is why I enjoyed it. So that way, when I sit down and I start writing, I have a clear idea of the direction that I want to go. Because from there on out, I'll go ahead and outline my content. I'll remember those strengths. I'll remember those weaknesses, and I try to plug that into my outline. So that way, when I start churning out that manuscript, it's it's like a rubber band. I just boom, and we just shoot right off. Because I think some folks have probably seen me over on YouTube. I've done a couple of case studies where I've written two different books in the course of 24 hours, and I've also written a book within 7 days. Now, clear, I want to be clear on this one here. It's a rough draft, folks. I'm not saying that you, you should be able to write and publish a book within 24 hours. That's just crazy. But, I always look at it this way. It's better to write hammered garbage because you can't edit a blank page. So that's the
Yep.
direction I go. So that is my full like workflow and going into it and producing my manuscripts. I didn't anticipate publishing an entire series, Evan. Like literally, I was doing NaNoWriMo in 2021. I wrote by the end of that year up to 4 books. They just sat and collect digital dust. I spent all of 2022 focusing on fiction writing. I worked with a fiction writing coach because that's the direction I'll be eventually pivoting to. And then I came back to 2023 and I was like, oh, I added a few more publications to it. Next thing I know, I have an entire 8-part series. And of course, I haven't shared this with you yet. I plan on taking the 3 publications I already have out about the Amazon self-publisher. I'm removing the Amazon branding name because unfortunately it restricts me from doing video ads on the Amazon platform. They were like,
Oh,
hey,
interesting.
yeah, they were like, you're fine using Amazon originally. Like KDP, they were like, at first they were real wishy-washy about it. And they were like, eventually, like, look, it's fine, Dale. We will let you know if there's an issue. And they haven't had an issue. But then I go over and try to run video ads for the sponsored brand ads, and they were like, no.
These are video ads that you're running on Amazon. So like when someone
Right,
searches a particular term, you have a video ad that can come up in the listings.
right, correct. You could be able to
I
do the
have
video ads. So
I've
I
not seen authors really taking advantage of that.
I think it's because there's not enough people talking about it. I see a lot of folks that are putting out a lot of videos about Amazon ads, and it's usually surrounding sponsored product ads and to a certain extent sponsored brand ads, but they've never really delved further down into it. And see, I've actually had video ads on for like the longest time because I had an Amazon Advantage account, but I kept kicking that can further down the road. I kept kicking it, kicking it. Well, finally, this recent iteration of sponsored brand ads had the version of video ads, and I was super excited. I was ready to do it, and they were like, no. So I'm
Hmm.
I'm removing the Amazon ads. Or the Amazon name to get Amazon ads for the videos. So that's actually those 3 publications are actually going to get a second edition. They're going to get tacked onto this current series. And then I'm probably going to wrap it up with a book about email marketing for authors because
Okay.
I feel very confident in the fact that, I mean, with a pretty good average open rate of about 50%, I think I kind of know what I'm talking about.
I want to pull a few things out there that you did. So,
Sure.
so in terms of what authors should do before prepping writing their book, before they even got that draft outline, right?
Yeah.
A few of the things that you mentioned. One was looking at the market as a whole, looking at the size of the potential audience, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're writing for a super niche audience, like you're writing for authors, there aren't a ton, there's not millions upon millions of people looking for books about launch campaigns for a book, right?
Yep.
Um, so it's doing that market research. And then second thing was you also looked at what your own personal interests are, right? Are you
Yep.
in what where you have expertise and where you feel that you can provide value and
Yep.
what you're interested in. So I think you know, it's worth mentioning there, like this thing would have said, don't do this. don't publish books on writing and entrepreneurship and stuff. But then on the other hand, you have this wealth of experience and you've already built up a following.
Yep.
And not only that, but you also have to look at the difference between fiction and nonfiction, right?
Oh,
With nonfiction,
yep.
you have other things that your audience would be looking for from you too. So you might have coaching or training or workshops or other things which make it, you know, a business. It has more sort of facets to it. And this is something that we were going to get into later. I was planning on getting into later with you, but
Yeah.
I think it probably makes sense to stop here and talk a little bit about diversifying your income as an author, right? Because
Yeah.
for fiction authors and for nonfiction authors, because we've kind of already covered that with nonfiction authors. You can do, the courses and trainings and workshops and that stuff too. But for
Yep.
fiction authors, how are some ways that they might diversify their income? And what are some of the things you've done?
I think as a fiction author, one of the things that you need to kind of be aware of is how many ways can I be able to repurpose the content I currently have. This can work for both fiction and nonfiction, but specifically on fiction, I think it's so important that I've seen so many fiction authors that absolutely crush it in the business, but they're only doing ebooks because they've been told by some would-be gurus that publishing print versions of their books won't sell a dime. But the problem is now you are telling that reading audience that typically buys print or gets downloadable audiobooks. You're saying, no, you're not worth the time. Now, that might be a bit of an extreme. I'm sure no one's like, oh my gosh, there's no audiobook of Evan Gau's latest, book, The Werebear Shapeshifter Who Loved Me, but diversifying means let's see if we can be able to get every single iteration that we can. So this means that think about ebook, hardback, paperback, and downloadable audiobook. And then also take into account that translations are another avenue that you can explore, whether you go German market, Spanish market, any number of those other ones. Obviously, market research is super important because you don't want to be doing a full translation only to discover that there are crickets over there. You want to make sure that there is proof of concept. There's also the other aspect of, selling the rights. Let's just say, for instance, that you just don't want to touch any of the print. You don't want to touch any of the audiobook. That's totally fine. So at that point, start to consider selling those rights to an organization, especially if you have a well-established brand. You could be able to part ways with those rights with I don't know, like a 3-year deal, a 5-year deal, 10-year deal, whatever that might be. Scratch that itch. I don't care how you do it. You could be able to sell those rights. That doesn't mean that you lose it forever. Don't give any perpetual license to anybody. But that is one of the ways that you can diversify. Uh, it's become so much tougher for fiction authors, and I'm 100% aware of that. And that's where I believe that a lot of your growth is going to come by locking arms with other people within your niche. So that way you are seeing a substantial amount of growth, that you're seeing more readers on a regular basis, that you're getting that exposure that you really need to grow as an author. Beyond that, I mean, we could really go further down that rabbit hole and focus on things like email marketing. Email marketing, I think every single author needs to have an email list to some capacity because that is the way that you can pull them off of these major platforms like Amazon, like Apple, like Barnes and Noble, and bring them into your ecosystem. And then you could start to nurture that relationship and you could start to sell direct to them. Or, and in some instances, you could start to sell other people's books within your niche and genre. Obviously, you're not going to have, I mean, maybe there's probably somebody here on this call that probably is doing this right now. You're not going to have 20 publications firing out every month. I mean, some of you might even only have like 1 to 4 publications that go out within the course of a year. So how do you keep your audience engaged is sharing things that they would enjoy, things that you enjoy that's within that niche that is relevant to that. And you can do that through things like the Amazon Associates program. I know Barnes and Noble's got an affiliate program. Apple's got an affiliate program. And sharing those publications is one of the ways to do it. Now, also, take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, Substack, I believe, is another avenue that you can kind of build your email marketing as well as network with other people within your genre. And you could start to do more affiliate marketing and starting to sell more books and such. I wish I could say that fiction authors go do a course or get a coaching program, but I mean, I highly doubt that that's going to work out unless you're like a Michael Aron who is going to sell that information to other authors. And I think there's some people that would just rather focus on their craft of fiction writing rather than teaching that. And that's totally understandable. If you want to get into this walk of life, it's fun, but I will tell you that it is challenging.
If you're a fiction author, then trying to add on like doing nonfiction stuff for other authors, that can quickly consume your life. I mean, I wanted to, when I left my job and I was going to start Story Origin and start building tools for writers, I wanted to get into writing at the same time. And then just quickly, the building tools for writers took over 100% of my time, and I never really got back into the writing the way that I had intended. So yeah, it can quickly, when you're talking about building things or doing things for other authors, that can quickly take over a ton of your time. Caroline said, I've sold more paperbacks than ebooks, to your point about, making sure you're serving different audiences there. And then someone else had asked, and I think this ties into talking about at what point does it become worth the time to get into translations and formatting for different audiences between paperback or audiobook and ebook. So the question was, what are realistic sales expectations for first fiction books, first series books, and nonfiction, specifically on the week of launch, the launch month, the first 3 months, the first year? there'd be a whole lot of things to
Yeah.
answer there because that covered a lot of things. But could you give us some idea around like what you typically see from authors when you're helping them out with their launches and stuff like that too?
If you've done a lot of your preparation and you've done a ton of marketing and promotion and you have at least an email list that you can lean on and a couple of peers that could be able to help you with email broadcasts, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that you could see anywhere in the hundreds of purchases within the first month of launch to as much as 1,000 or more. I find that a vast majority of the people that are not pulling in hundreds of sales within the first month, it typically comes back to not doing enough preparation, not getting the reviews in order, not building a launch team and getting an advanced reader copy team ready to rock and roll. And this is not to admonish anybody. Look, I've been in that position before as well. I've had some real doozies of some book launches that I'm like, I was lucky if I sold a dozen within the first month. And it usually comes back to the preparation that goes into it. So, what are the realistic expectations for things like this? It just varies. I can't give you a
Yeah.
good solid number, and I could probably say anecdotally, what I've shared here, but it's going to vary from one person to the next. I've known some people that have done tens of thousands within their first month of launch. But that was a lot of preparation. They had a little bit extra money. They had, the finances to back it up and do some book promotions through some premium resources like, Brave Books or written word media or the likes of that. So yeah, I hate to
Yeah.
say it, it varies. It just really
Yeah.
does. But what I would recommend is when you do your launch, figure out what was the sequence that you did upon launch as well as in post launch. What were the results? And then going into your next campaign, figure out what was moving the needle and what wasn't. You'll be able to clearly know what moves the needle, what is selling actual books. Because in theory, you could hear some bald-headed YouTuber or anybody else sharing like, oh, this promotional thing is going to get you tens of thousands of dollars a month. That's great. That works for them. Every single person that's watching this right now are all unique in some capacity. We all come with our own skill set, our own background, with our own financial restrictions and limitations. So, what could work for this random YouTuber is fantastic, but it's 100% different for you. So, what I would say is it comes down to a lot of trial and error, figuring out what moves that needle, what doesn't. Whatever doesn't move that needle, don't do it anymore, move on to something else. But one of the things I would really recommend is before you abandon any specific type of marketing or promotional tactic, that you really scrutinize what you did and try to figure out, okay, did I have everything in place? Was I as diligent about these efforts as what this random YouTuber had shared? And did it give me measurable results? Because if it didn't give me measurable results, how could I be able to tweak this and modify it so it will give me something that's going to be considerably different?
To your point, it's so variable by author. You can't really give a good answer to this question. And I think
Yeah.
that's just the truth of the matter is if we boil down this question to what are realistic sales expectations for first fiction book? Well, assuming you've done nothing other than write the book and put it on Amazon, the realistic sales expectations are probably zero.
Yeah. That's about right. And I think there was too many times that a lot of us rely so much on the distribution platform to do the sales
Right.
for us. Well, if I just get all the right keywords and I pick all the right categories, it's going to be great. That's what I call publish and pray. You can publish and pray all you want. That's totally fine. It's great for hobbyists. But if you're looking at making a substantial amount of income, unfortunately, publishing and praying is not going to work. You cannot rely on any one distribution platform to drive that type of traffic. It's going to be 100% it's all on you to make that happen. Because once you can have proof of concept that you can prove to a platform like, say, Amazon, that you're able to shift units, that you're able to sell more books, then it's going to be very likely that they're going to start to send more. But if you're doing nothing, you're just publishing it and throwing it out there. That's great. That's the equivalent of just me writing a book and going out on the sidewalk and just throwing it out on the sidewalk. Someone's going to trip over it eventually. No, you got to do some marketing and promotion for sure. But yeah, realistic expectations. If you did absolutely nothing, zero's definitely realistic.
Yeah.
There are some outliers. There are going to be some people that catch lightning in a bottle that will do
Yep.
it. They prove me wrong. Yes, I understand that.
Yep.
But that is the exception to the rule. They are outliers for good reason. And it's hard to capture something like that. So yeah, you do need to have a plan. Don't rely on any distribution platform to do it for you for free because they just won't.
Right. You don't want to bet on winning the lottery.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to put it.
Like yeah, you don't want to spend, hundreds or thousands of dollars on editing and formatting and all of this stuff and not have a real marketing plan in place and just, bet that your book is going to sort of hit the lottery and just perfectly hit whatever zeitgeist is happening in any particular genre where you're just, hitting all the things that readers are looking for just at that particular time because it's always constantly changing and evolving for sure. Um, like I used to, I read a lot of lit RPG. It's like the genre that I prefer. And, VR, MMO sort of stuff used to be all it was. That's all the genre was. It was just people trapped in a virtual reality world, and then like the game becomes life, and if you die in the game, then you die in real life, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and now that's like it doesn't no one's writing that anymore, and lit RPG is completely different. And like if you write a VR story now in lit RPG, like people kind of like dismiss it out of hand because readers are just looking for something new. And so it's always changing and evolving. And so just betting that you're going to just hit the zeitgeist in a particular genre at the right time can be, yeah, it's not something that you want to sort of bet the farm on. I do want to go to another question on my list, which is we talked about that launch and how you can prepare for it. Like, what is the checklist? What are the things that I ought to do like 2 months ahead of time where I've got them all down on a list and like, here's what I want to make sure I've got day one of my launch or week one of my launch or
Yeah.
like the first month of my launch. These are the things I want to have in place at that time.
Uh, Getting the email list first and foremost makes the most amount of sense. And this is going to go whether you're fiction or nonfiction. Get that email list started. And a lot of people are kind of going, "Oh, this is kind of the chicken and the egg situation here. How can I be able to get people to go on my email list if I don't have a single book?" And that's where you're going to really want to focus on building a reader magnet of some sort. You have so much creativity within you. Every single person that's watching this right now, you have a creative bone in your body, tons of them for some of you. And it's just taking that extra time and putting a little extra work before you launch that first big publication or your next big publication, if you will, to build that reader magnet. Now, that reader magnet could be something as simple as a novella. If you're feeling really, really froggy, you can go for a novel. For nonfiction authors, boy, we got it easy. You can just do a single page report through Canva. And I've gotten thousands of email subscribers from things like that. Just a simple, small, short report. Or, like I said, you can always do something as simple as a 10 to 20,000 word manuscript. Build that email list at a substantial amount. I would recommend, if you could, get it anywhere from about 3 to 4 figures to start comfortably. If you could get about 1,000 subscribers, that would be ideal. But is it a game, is it going to be a deal breaker? No, not by any means. Just get something, because at that point you need to start working with other authors within your niche to build that email list through newsletter swaps. That's going to be the biggest thing. Now, obviously, it sounds like Evan's paying me to do this, but Story Origin's fantastic. Do that. You
I'm
got the
not paying Dale.
no, he's not even a dime. It's because, I truly believe it. And I use Story Origin for that reason. Newsletter swaps are fantastic. It's a great way to network and build relationships with other authors without having to track them down and seem weird. Because I don't know about you. This is advice I've dispensed in my YouTube videos before, but I'm an introvert. I just don't. There's every bone in my body doesn't want to reach out to some random author to cold prospect them. It's just tough. It's like pulling teeth. I would rather pull my teeth. And by the way, I love my teeth. So I really wouldn't want to part ways with that. But Story Origin removes that friction, because as soon as you can build that relationship with another author and start to do some newsletter swaps, chances are very likely they're going to have other people within their network that's going to work with you in some capacity. And never, ever, ever, ever be afraid of trying to work with an author who has more subscribers than you. Likewise, don't dismiss anybody that has a smaller list, because Every single point of contact makes a huge bit of difference in your business because there's one person that can just, it's like a butterfly effect. As soon as you get that person is going to be your biggest ambassador. They're going to be trumpet from the top of the mountains, like, hey, Evan Gao is the next best thing to sliced bread. You've got to go check him out. And then you're going to start bringing that in. So again, I don't care if you've got 6 subscribers, you got 60 subscribers, you got 6,000 or 60,000. Work with each other because when you lock arms with other authors, it's going to make a huge difference. So it's building that email list, and it seems daunting. I understand, especially if you're kind of the person that goes, Dale, I'm not tech savvy. Hey, I totally get it. That's totally fine. And good argument, but there are so many resources, free resources out there that will show you exactly how to do it based on the service that you use, whether it's MailerLite, MailChimp, ConvertKit, Get Response, any number of these other ones. They have a lot of free resources, whether you go over on YouTube or even something like MailerLite has their own free course that you can go through, or even like Dave Chesson did one for MailerLite. MailerLite's not paying me anything to say this, but all that to say this is don't feel overwhelmed. It starts with one step at a time. You don't need to have Jedi mind tricks. I've read so many books over the years and heard so many experts that are just like, if you say the right type of no, stop it. Stop it. Treat your email list like they're a bunch of friends. These are people that you're building a one-on-one relationship with. Because if you can start to treat that like how Evan and I are, like we are good buddies. We communicate in this capacity. And when I go and I send an email to Evan, I'm not sitting here thinking about, well, how can I trick Evan into buying my latest book? No, I'm going to have a conversation with Evan and I'm going to treat that way. So if anybody subscribes to my email newsletter, you'll see it's dead simple. I don't overthink it. I just sit there and I go tap, 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 tap. And don't overcomplicate it. But yeah, build that email list. That's going to be the biggest thing is when you get that email list, now's the time to strike. We're going to want to build ourselves an advanced reader copy team. That ARC team is a game changer. And the more that you can load up a bunch of readers with advanced copies to post reviews upon launch, the better. Because I've found by and large, and I'm going to give you guys anecdotally speaking here, about 30% of the people that come onto your ARC team are going to actually leave a book review on launch. Those reviews are going to make a huge bit of difference based on the platform in which you're publishing on. Yeah, sure, we can say Amazon, but other platforms as well, whatever that might be. Could be Kobo, could be Barnes and Noble. I don't care what it is. Just get those reviews rocking and rolling because that third-party credibility is one of the ways that people are going to be convinced this is the book for me. I don't need to guess about this because I've already seen that there are 20 people, 30 people, 40 people that have read this and they've enjoyed it. And this is the genre I'm shooting for. So let's go ahead and rock and roll. But build that ARC team and build it 3 times as large as what you would think you're going to want it to be. So if you want to go on launch day, you want to have 15 reviews, you're going to probably want to have about 45 advanced readers. Now, if you've got a better percentage than 30%, fantastic, run with it. That's great. I would love to see everybody get 100% every single time with their ARC team, but I'm sure Evan's shaking his head because he knows the numbers. He gets to see behind the scenes that not everybody leaves a review. It's fine. I would say at the very least, encourage anybody, if you're ever talking person to person or via email, that if they're dragging their feet of posting a review for your book, then just say leave a rating. Literally only takes a person 2 seconds to open up something like Amazon and go, boom, hit that rating and done. They can go to Goodreads. Boom. There we go. There's my rating. I'm out of here. Just simple as that. But those are the two main things that I think that we should definitely start to focus on the most is build that email list, build the ARC team, nurture each of those, and try to go for a good full launch. Now, I could go through an entire checklist, but I think that those are the two most vital components to having a good, successful book launch.
When I had asked this question, I had said, what would you do like a couple months beforehand? And Kirsten said, how about a year before launch? I think if you are on top of your game, if you can start building your mailing list a year before you launch your book, then great. You will be in a much better position at book launch. And
Yeah.
so, exactly what you touched on is what I always recommend to authors,
Mhm.
because a lot of times I'll hear from authors that they want to put up a book for review, and it's again that sort of that publish and pray kind of a mindset where it's like my book is free, people can get it for free, and then they're gonna review it, and it's just like a build it and they will come sort of field of dreams thinking,
Yeah.
um, which you know there are, platforms where you can do that and you might get a handful of reviews that way. And you can do that with Story Origin too. And you might get a handful of reviews that way. And so I'm always, working on trying to make that aspect of Story Origin where you can just put a book up and like you'll get a handful of people that will request a review copy from you. But regardless, even so, those people are not going to be your best reviewers, because the people who are going to be your best reviewers are the people who are familiar with you and your work, right? So if you've built a mailing list and you've built an ARC team from that mailing list, like an advanced reader team or advanced review team, who you're going to give the book to them for free ahead of the publication date, uh, they're going to be your best reviewers because they already like your work. There's not going to be someone who accidentally requests it thinking, oh, this is a cozy romance. And then you've given them a steamy romance. And they're like, whoa, this is not my cup of tea. Really didn't like this book or whatever, right? Versus when the review team is made up of people who have been on your mailing list and might have read your reader magnet, the reviews are generally going to be more positive, and uh, there's less chance of thinking they're gonna get something that they're not. So right, that reader magnet, that whether it's a prequel to your book or your series, or a novella, or even book one in your series, you might give away as your reader magnet, or a sample, the first three chapters or whatever. I
Yeah.
also think that authors will oftentimes put up roadblocks for themselves of this is what this is what so and so said, and so I need to do it exactly this way. And it doesn't have to be exactly that way,
No.
right? If you just get started with building a mailing list, like get one person on your mailing list, yourself at least, right?
Right. Yeah.
Send a newsletter out weekly, even if it's just yourself. And then you can start to do some of that stuff. Like if someone tells you a good reader magnet is a prequel short story to your book or your series. You say, okay, well, it's going to take me, I'm going to probably, because I'm working a full-time job, it's probably going to take me like 2 months to write that. I've already got
Mhm.
book one ready to launch, but I'm going to have to delay that because I want to build my mailing list first. So
Yeah.
it's going to take me 2 months to write it, maybe another month to edit it. And then you're looking at, 3, 6 months in the future before you even have, 100 people on your mailing list or something like that, right?
Yep.
If you've already got book one written, take for the first three chapters out and use that as a reader magnet. Now, it's not generally as effective as a full story for
Yeah.
getting readers hooked into reading your book or your series, but it gets you started. Just
Yeah.
like tearing down all of those roadblocks of like, well, it needs to be this way. Like, just think of what is the fastest way I can get something to deliver value that would get people onto my mailing list rather than it needs to be a particular thing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, having that mailing list is so important. And someone asked, how do you start building that mailing list? And you had mentioned doing newsletter swaps there.
Yeah.
And group promos is another great option for authors as well. So those newsletter swaps, those are the direct one-to-one cross promotions where I'm saying I'll promote one of your books in one of my newsletters if you promote one of my books in one of your newsletters. And a group promo is you, me, and let's say 20 other authors. We all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that landing page. Um,
It's like newsletter swaps on steroids, is what it
yeah.
is.
And so, yeah, you can arrange both of those on Story Origin. And, a lot of authors who are on here already know that. But yeah, and then get your review copy. So you talked about building a review team. Someone asked, how do you ask people to be a part of your review team or to join your review team?
You just simply ask. It's really there's no, again, no Jedi mind tricks or anything else like that, but make sure that you share your excitement. because everybody can sense when you're excited about something. And if you're not excited about your book, then you're doing something wrong. I'm always excited about the books. For the next 8 months, I'm going to be freaking jumping out of my skin because I'm thoroughly excited about it. So if you can share that passion, if you can kind of just get it all canned up and share it with everybody through your email list, through social media, through your website, through your blog, all those types of things, people are going to want to jump into it. It's sharing that enthusiasm that's going to draw a crowd. You don't need to do it like me. You don't need to be over the top. You don't need to be freaking loud and bombastic. Just be yourself and share it in the passionate way that you can. So that way they can come along for the ride. I would say make sure that you're setting expectations because there's going to be some instances there are some readers that don't know what an advanced reader copy team is. But if you tell them, hey, I'd like to give you advanced access to my upcoming publication, I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to singe your eyebrows. You're going to want to call your whole family over. Grandma, come on over. This is awesome. You don't want to miss out on this one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bring grandpa along. Make sure he puts in his hearing aids. Just get things rocking and rolling. Don't overthink it when it comes to asking for that, and just set expectations of, hey, I plan on launching my book on X date. It would mean the world to me if you published a review on that date or after it. I always just try to not force people to go on the day because then it looks more organic, it's more natural, it's great, it's more warm and fuzzy too as well. It's good dopamine drip. But set those expectations with those readers and also let them know too that you're going to send a link to them of where they're going to post a review. Remove that friction. Tools like Story Origin obviously make it dead simple. I don't ever need to tell people exactly what to do because it does it for me. I can just sit back and relax. But in the event that you're building an advanced reader copy list without the help of this software or service, then yeah, definitely build that expectation. And even before I send them over to my Story Origin landing page, I typically try to let them know exactly what's going on and how things are gonna roll out. But hopefully that helps. Again, there's no sexy one way to do it. It's just pulling the trigger and doing it. And I think through a lot of trial and error, and if you continue to publish and iterate on your business, every launch is going to get better. And you're going to start to realize there is a certain way that you've communicated in the past that really works the best. And you're just going to go ahead and double down on that.
And I think one thing to note there as well is just as long as we're talking about other things to do around that launch and why having a review team is valuable and important
Yeah.
is that if you want to have get into paid newsletters like those from Written Word Media or get a book bub or whatever, a lot of those paid newsletter promo services where you're just going to pay, X dollars and they'll put your book in their newsletter that goes out to, Y thousand number of people. A
Yeah.
lot of those services vet the books that they're going to be promoting to their newsletter lists by looking at the reviews first. And a lot of them will say, we only promote books that have at least 10, 12, 15 reviews on them because for a lot of authors, if we take an author who has 0 reviews on their book and we promote them to our list, when we send traffic to that book, there's not any conversions because people are looking for that social proof
Yeah.
that it's a good book before they buy it themselves. And so it's sort of a chicken and the egg problem where
Yeah.
like you can't get book sales until you have reviews, but you don't get reviews until you have book sales. And the way to solve that chicken and egg problem is give the book away for free to a few people to get those reviews started. And then that will help you boost your conversion rate when you send people to that listing page on Amazon or Kobo or Apple or Google
Yeah.
Play, etc. Because I think you've mentioned this at times, and I don't remember what the statistic is. Maybe you remember it, but it's
I
like
probably do.
it's like 80% higher if you have at least 15
Yeah.
reviews on your Amazon product page if you've got 15 reviews or something like that, right?
There is within the Amazon advertising certification course that 91% of customers will look at review before making a purchase.
That's what it
Um,
is.
and some people will kind of push back a little bit and they go, well, that's for all products on Amazon. Let's just say that it's all averaged out across the board. It's still at 91%. Even if books were having a way lower percentage, it can't be much lower based on it being 91%. So 91% of customers look at those reviews. And furthermore, in order to be considered retail ready, I always have to put quotes on that because it's such a weird kind of phrase. But
Sounds
in
very
order,
business jargony.
right, retail ready, like let's get some synergy going in here.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
In order to be retail ready, they say that a product must have at least 15 reviews of a 3.5 star or greater average. So just try to make that your goal upon launch, that you get at least 15 reviews. And if you go and visit my latest book, you'll see that there's 18. Hooray! It needs to grow a little bit, but I'm working on that. There's many processes I'm going to be doing for that. But all that to say this is try to make at least 15 your goal upon launch. So that way you can approach some of these other services like the BookBubs and the written word medias and the Crave books of the world and not be limited on those type of things. And it's, again, just think about the percentages that I'd shared before of, 30% of your ARC readers are going to leave a review. If you get greater than that, phenomenal, shoot for the moon and at least you'll land amongst the stars, as I once heard it.
I think that is so helpful to have that statistic in mind that 91% of readers will look at, or customers on Amazon will look at reviews before making that purchase. And having, I think 15 reviews is a good goal to have in mind. Now, more reviews is great, but sort of just having an expectation of like, what should I try to hit is really helpful guidepost for authors. Switching gears a little bit,
Okay.
because we're talking about so much about building relationship with your readers and having an art team and
Mhm.
how to do all of that. Someone asked, what do you put in your newsletters if you're currently working on your drafts of your manuscript and don't have anything ready for publication yet, but are told to still start building a mailing list, right? So, I've written a reader magnet, right? And I'm not going to finish my book one in the series or have it ready to publish for another year. What am I sending out to these people? Am I just sending nothing between now and then? Am I
Yeah.
sending a newsletter like once every 3 months just to be like, I'm still alive, still working on that book?
Yeah. I would encourage that you at least communicate with your email list once per month. So you stay on their radar. The problem is if you wait beyond something like that, they're going to forget about you. There's been so many times that I've had emails that pop up into my inbox and I go, who is this from? And I have to scroll through and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. I subscribed to this like a year ago. The problem is you have to stay front of mind. But I know, and I got to give a big shout out here to Thomas again because he and I've had this conversation because it's almost like, what do I say to them? Because I don't have anything going on. I'm just writing my next book. Uh, it could be that process. It could be like where you're at in that creative process. Could be some of the research that you've done on, I don't know, settings. It could be something historical that you're working on. Share some of that data and share exactly how you're weaving that into your manuscript. Now, if for some reason you're at a position that you're like, I don't want to share any of that stuff because it might change by the time that comes out. That's fine. That could probably be something there altogether that you could run after later on. Could be something you do now. Communicate with your readers if you're ever lost. What do they want to know? Ask them. You're going to be amazed and say, hey, reply to this email. I would love to know what you would like to know about my business and such. There's also the aspect that I've shared before is share books within your niche. That's why it's good to read what you're writing. Go through, read that stuff. I'm talking from the trash books to the stuff that's perfection. Read them all and share some of that with those readers because that's going to keep them engaged and it's also going to keep you front of mind and reminding them that, oh yeah, that's right, this guy does books about self-publishing. Yeah, 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 okay, yeah. So that way when you do get ready to build that ARC team or get ready to publish that book, they're ready to rock and roll. Me personally, I've always communicated with my email newsletter once to twice per week, and I even verbally say this to people within my videos. I'm going to communicate with you once to twice per week. So it sets the expectations. If someone does not like having their email inbox flooded with 2 emails per week, they're probably not going to subscribe. That's great. I don't care. That's fine because that's probably going to be the person who's going to be kicking tires and just, it's whatever. Set expectations. And also ask for expectations. How often do you think is going to be appropriate for me to email you? There's going to be some people that'll answer. By and large, figure out what their expectations are. And also, you need to figure out What can you feasibly do based on the schedule you have? I'm sure there is a lot of people out here that are working a full-time job. They might have a family. They've got kids to take care of and soccer practices to visit and cheerleading, meets that they have to, attend. That's totally understandable. Think about what makes the most sense. But if you can, I would just implore that you at least consider monthly and set it, I don't know, set an alarm for the first of every month that you sit down and you write something. You're a creative individual. Show your creativity. It just display that. It could probably even be something as simple as just taking a snippet of the book that you particularly like. I love this part right here. Let me share with you exactly what I have here. Share it there. Break down why you love it so much and ask them, what direction do you think this should go? So that's for fiction, by the way. Nonfiction's dead simple here, folks. People got problems, you got solutions. Answer them with some solutions, and they're going to continue to open that email newsletter time and again.
With every newsletter, you have two things that you're trying to do. One is build rapport with your audience, right? That's the talking about your life or talking about your books, sharing with them in a way that makes you human to them, right? So every newsletter that I send out, it's always got like a picture of me or my dog or what we did, like we went to the
I
park.
love that,
I,
by the way.
you
I
know,
love it. Seeing your
yeah.
boy grow over these years, and it's so funny to see him like what the heck happened? Wasn't he a baby not too long ago?
I know. The days are long, but the years are short. And let me tell you, the days are very long. He's nonstop. He's got like energy out the wazoo. And we've now been going to soccer practice and stuff with him. And I look at the other kids sitting there like paying attention to the coach, and he's like rolling on the ground, like doing ninja moves, like while everyone else is just sitting there patiently. And I'm like, what? I thought he just had a normal 4-year-old level of energy, and now I'm like, okay, no, I think he has like 3 times the amount of energy of a normal 4-year-old. I don't know. But building rapport and like, showing that you're a human with your audience is so valuable.
Yeah.
And it's what makes people feel comfortable about like joining your review team because they
Yep.
know you, Dale, right? They're
Yep.
like, oh, Dale's a great guy. Like, I know like what he does, what he's like, in like I feel comfortable knowing that he's not some jerk or whatever, right? In his real life. Like
Just
he's
on the
just a
weekends.
normal dude. I mean, me and Dale like to razz each other, so we're a bit jerks to each other, but
Yeah. It's and hopefully everybody can kind of think about this. It's not just us bragging about what Evan does and what I do. Think about like just this connection that the two of us have, and that I've seen these pictures in his email newsletter. One of my biggest, best like performing like emails is within my automation. On the second day, I typically send out something that introduces myself, and it's not in every one of my automations, but there is a picture of my wife and I. And I think I'm trying to bite her face or something like that. It's me being goofy as per usual, but you could see the two of us just laughing and just having a great time. And that email gets a pretty good substantial amount of opens, and it also gets a lot of replies because I always say, I want to learn a little bit more about you. And the funny thing is I've met so many people across the world. I've heard so many great freaking stories. By the way, if you ever do subscribe to my email newsletter, when I ask you to reply, I personally reply back. It's not a bot. I take my time to sit down and read everybody's stories. Some of them are epic length novels, let me tell you. And then other times there's just a brief introduction and some people that are very elated about it. But yeah, if you can think about one of the best ways to connect with people is going to be telling a little bit about yourself. Now, there's going to be the argument that some people will probably make, and I can hear you guys mentally in here. I'm like Professor X here. I could read your mind. You're probably saying, but Dale, I've got a pen name. That's a good point. That is a great point. Guess what? You're creative. Think about it. Build that avatar for that pen name. You could still be able to share a lot with your life that may be true or maybe it's not true. That's completely up to you. I would say that if you don't feel comfortable in sharing pictures of your son or pictures of your wife where you're biting her face, that's probably, by the way, I'm not legitimately biting her face. I'm trying to. Um, But you don't need to always have to share those photos, but hopefully you get enough inspiration to understand that people connect with people. It's not always about chasing an algorithm and becoming more discoverable. It's about building real, true one-on-one relationships that people will just they will feel it for years to come, and they'll say, this woman is one of my favorite authors, and here's why. This guy is one of my favorite authors, and here's why. There's so many things that you can be able to just give people. So regardless if you have a pen name or if you're scared of getting on a in a picture and sharing that with the world and you want to maintain some anonymity, think about one of the ways that you can still be able to connect. It could be about woodworking. I don't know. It's find some way that you can be able to tie everything together with your specific brand. So that way, again, you keep front of mind.
All right, we are at the 1 o'clock mark. So for anyone that has to drop, feel free to drop. But since we're out of time here, but I had a lot of other things I wanted to ask you. Dale, can we do like a lightning round?
All right. Yep. Simple answers. Here we go.
Okay, simple answers. KU versus wide.
I prefer wide because I see that there's so much more opportunity in reaching readers.
Okay. And if I'm going wide, do I need to use an aggregate publisher or do I go to each of them direct?
Depends on time versus money. If you don't have as much time, then you want to go ahead and use an aggregate publisher. If you've got a little bit more money, or reverse that, excuse me. If you got a little more time, do it yourself. If you got a little bit more money, then go for aggregate publishers. I've flipped that. Sorry about that. I panicked.
So who are the like aggregate publishers that you would recommend?
Oh gosh, Draft Digital, Ingram Spark, uh, Lulu's pretty good. Let me see here. Oh, Streetlib. Streetlib's another great one. But those are just ones off the top of my head. My apologies if there's anybody watching this on the replay that's from an aggregate company that I've worked with previously.
And at what point should an author expand into audiobooks? We talked a little bit about that earlier, like, having your book available in multiple formats. Like at what
Yeah.
point do you go, okay, I've got the ebook up. Now I'm going to format it for print. Now I'm going to do an audiobook. What's that timeline you look like, you think?
As soon as humanly possible, but only within your financial restrictions. If it's
Which
not
is different
feasible,
for
you
everyone.
right. If you've got an epic length novel and you don't want to have AI generated voice on it, then chances are very likely you're going to probably have to work your way towards it. What I would recommend is consider using crowdsourcing and start to build those funds so that way you can get the audiobooks out. Don't rest on audiobooks. It is blowing up big time and you'll be doing a great disservice to your readers without it.
All right. And what are the cost-effective marketing strategies you recommend for authors on a tight budget?
Oh man. I did a case study more recently for little free libraries. There are a ton of those inside the area that just look it up. Littlefreelibraries.org it might be. They've got an app. My wife and I took out 31 books and delivered those, but that's a pretty good cost-effective way. Workshops at local libraries or even author readings and author appearances. All you got to do is just be comfortable enough to approach somebody that's in charge to see if you can place yourself in that position. Um, Become resilient and resourceful. You don't always need to spend thousands of dollars in order to promote your book.
Say that you do have some money to spend. You're not living on a shoestring necessarily. What would be a good budget that you would want to allocate for marketing book one?
$10 per day is more than sufficient. So if you can be able to have at least $300 within the course of the month, because to me, if I had $300, I'm going to immediately go over to Amazon advertising and I'll plunk that down $10 per day on a campaign with a couple of different ad groups.
Okay. And I think someone else had asked, what are some ways to keep momentum going after the launch period is over? I think that sort of answers that point as well. So it's like the timeline of what we've talked about. It's like
Yeah.
build your mailing list, put together the review team ahead of the publication date, like a couple months ahead of the publication date.
Yep.
You launch it, and then after the publication date, we do some of those things that we talked about, like paying for promo spots, continuing to do newsletter swaps and group promos, but now instead of promoting that reader magnet, you're promoting a universal book link to send sales over to Amazon, and then running AMS ads, and then doing paid promo spots in
Yeah.
newsletters too.
The key to promotion, folks, here is be as visible as possible. I mean, this right here. I mean, I knew I was launching a book and I got a hold of Evan right away. I get a hold of people as much as possible. I reach out and I do a ton of outreach. It's every day. I'm sitting down and thinking about how can I be visible. And if you're not sure how to do that, just grab out a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to start writing out ideas of creative ways that you can make yourself more visible. And the more creative that you can be, the more you're going to stand out from the pack.
So, Dale, you have a ton more advice for us. Obviously, we're not going to cover it all because we've had an hour and you've been doing this for years and you have so much out there. So, where should authors start when I mean, you've got a ton of advice for authors. So, where should authors go to learn more and figure out the other strategies and tactics you recommend?
Well, it just so happens that I've got this brand new book called Self-Publishing for New Authors. You can find that at every major online retailer and libraries. So go ahead and grab yourself a copy. All joking aside, you can also get a free resource in YouTube. You can find me on there, Dale L. Roberts. I've got two channels. I've got the main channel. It's almost 100,000 subscribers. And I've got my podcast channel. It's a little bit more laid back and a little bit off the cuff, kind of like what we've been doing right here. But that is the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast. And you can be able to get all that. And by the way, while we're still talking here, I could definitely use a few more advanced readers for my upcoming publication. If you want to join that team, that's dalelinks.com/arc team. Again, that's dalelinks.com/arc team, ARC as an advanced reader copy. So
And and where would people go to get on your mailing list as well?
that would be dalelinks.com/sign up.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, Dale, for coming on. Everyone, go at the very minimum, dalelinks.com/sign up, and then you can get that email in his welcome sequence, and you can
Yes.
say, Dale, I forgot all of those links that you told me I was supposed to use. Where's the one to get onto your ARC team?
There we go. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
really appreciate
yeah.
everybody taking a little bit of time out your day to spend a little bit of time with Evan and I. This has been awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us again today. If you guys have any questions for me specifically, you can always reach me at evan@storyoriginApp.com or just hit the contact link on Story Origin. Thank you again, Dale, for coming on. And I will be sharing the replay link for this interview with everyone a little later as well, in case there's anything that you want to go back and remember all of the things that we said. So thanks again for taking your time out of the day to hang out with us, everyone. Bye.